listeners, Harika here, and I'm super excited to welcome you to UppTalk. If you're ready to learn and get your hands work wonders in the world of information technology, then you're in the right place. When I say UppTalk, we are not just another edtech company. Consider we are your learning partner committed to unlocking your full potential. Whether you're stepping into the world of technology for the first time or looking to advance your career, we provide top-tier, hands-on courses to build up your career. Let's take our first step towards learning here and explore it.
Now, if you need to convert report-specific field into system-wide calculated field, wide CA. For this one, we have one minor report convert. Convert calculated field for report. You can try this. You have already created a report specific calculated field. Now, if you need to convert that report specific calculated field, use this task. This is a task name. This is a task name. I'm just putting in 1-star mark here. That we know this is a task name. Now, if you need to convert a system-wide into report specific, then we have another task which we call as convert calculated field. You can explore these two tasks in one day and just try to explore. I mean, you have already created one report specific calculated field. Now we know just try to convert that calculated field in system-wide calculated field. And then again, you create a system-wide calculated field and try to convert that into report specific calculated field. Using this task I mentioned, you just explore that. And how exactly we are going to create a system-wide calculated field? That is something we know we will. Anyways, we are going to discuss today. Now we have a lot of, calculated field functions. Create calculated field. This is the task to create a calculated field. I was talking about the functions. The functions here. If you click on the function, then here you will be able to see a lot of functions. Right? I mean, there are a lot of functions in aggregate. Related instances are arithmetic calculation will get concatenated. We know all of these are the functions which calculated field is offering. In what they know, we have categorized these calculated fields into, some categories. Categories are like, numeric calculated fields. Numeric calculated fields. Then text calculated fields. Then we have date calculated fields. Then we have organization calculated fields. There is one Boolean. And then we have instance calculated fields. Numeric calculated fields are arithmetic calculation. Convert to number. Date difference. constant. Count related in census, sum related in census. Text length, text length, convert, currency. These are, numeric related, calculated fields. Numeric related calculated fields. This is arithmetic calculation used for the calculation purpose. Convert text to number. If you have any text and if you want to convert that text to number, for that reason of subtraction, you can use that. Use convert text to number. Then we have date difference. If you want to difference, find the difference between two dates, you can use the date difference. Then we have numeric constant. You can define a numeric constant. For example, if you need to use 3, 4, 5 of these kind of numbers, and you don't have numeric constant, you will not be able to use. Basically, you need to create those constant field on global business object. We are going to discuss that. Then we have count related in census. Count related in census. If you want to count the instances in related business object, there you can use the count related in census. Now, if you want to sum the values of one of the failed related business object, you will be able to do using sum related in census. Then we have text length. If you want to find the length of any string, then you can use the text length. If you want to convert the currency, you will be able to use this convert currency calculated. These are the calculated fields we have in numeric. And then we have some calculated fields in text such as contact and need. Then we have lookup, translated value. Then we have some spring. Then we have text constant, format date, format number, format. These are, text type of calculated fields. Here, you can understand, to join two texts will be, we can use concatenate, text will. Then no, if you want to get the substring, like some part of, take, you can use something if you need to define text constant. Let's say, you want to create a constant field which will be the name of your company. Let's say ABC. ABC is something. A BC is your company name and you want to just, create a constant value there. You can use text constant. If you want to format date in some other format, you can use format date. If you want to format number, you will be able to use format number. Then if you want to format date, like, for example, if you want to convert one string into uppercase, lowercase, camel case, mixed case, you will be able to using. You will be able to use this format. And that's how you are going to convert. But these are the things that calculated. We are going to discuss in all these calculated fields. In detail, then we have, date type. In the type calculated will be, have be date. Then we have date constant. Then we have being 3 met. The green meant either they calculated. Then we have organizations in organization. We have organizations. Then look up organization rows. Then we have here the key that we have looked up. Here are the Then we know in Boolean we have calculated fields like to false. To false calculated field. Then we have instances, and instances we have lookup. Range, and then we have extract. Single instance, and then extract. Multi insist. And then we have some other calculated fields that can return any kind of farmers. Others are evaluate. We have a value, the way expression. Then we have low related value. Then we have value. As of date. Then we have prompt. Oval. Evaluate expression. Lookup. Relate. They look up fields with prompt. And the last is lookup. Here I'm marking the important fields in which we are going to use. Frequently. I'll just mark when I'll explain all this calculated fields. Basically, in the system, we have these many calculated fields. In numeric, we have, this, many calculated fields in place. We have been upon catnet. It's constant, formatted in date. We have built it. Date constants increment, decrement date. Then in organization, we have lookup organization, organization those. Here again, here all up in Boolean. When we need to define any condition, we have to post calculated field. Then there are some instance type of calculated field. We have single extract, single instance extract, multiple instance and aggregate related in sense. And there are some other calculated fields which can return any of the format. For any kind of format, these other fields can return. Evaluate expression, lookup related value. Lookup, lookup value as update prompt for value. Evaluate expression bank. Lookup fields with prompts. Lookup date problem. We know these are the calculated fields. Functions we have now. Before we start creating calculated this, you need to understand. Few things. There are some tasks. The first task is create calculated fields. Now, if you want to see all the system-wide calculated fields created in the system, you have one task, maintain calculated. When you will search for maintain calculated fields, it will give you all the calculated fields which has been created in the system. Here, if you see, if you just go here, maintain calculated Here if you see, you will be able to see all the system-wide calculated fields. Here's the total. There are 10,459 calculated fields created in this tenant. Now let us open any one calculated field, for example this. If you need to add the calculated field, let's say you create a calculator using create calculate task and you already saved. Now, if you want to add a calculated field, what you need to do is you need to go to the related action. In this related action, you will be having option calculated field. And in that calculated field, you will be having option of edit. And there is one more task here to edit a calculated field. There is another task. That task is edit. If you already know that calculated field name, you can use edit calculated field. Just remember this task and then, if you want to edit a calculated field, there are two ways you can do. You can just go to the related action of calculated field and then you just go with the, you just click on calculated field and click on edit. Another way is you can directly search edit calculated field. Give the calculated field name and you will be able to, edit any calculated fields. Do we need to calculate it? There are three options. What they always give, multiple options to do the same thing. One option is open, go to see if related action. Then again in related action, see if calculated building, or let's open, see if go to related action, then see if there you will find option. This is one. Another option is a calculated field task. It calculated the task. The third option is going to mean calculated field. Maintain. See if there you locate calculated field. Look at it. Go to related action. Go to edit. For same thing, we have three options. Now in the calculated field, if you see, if you create any calculated field, there will be many options. Let's say I'm typing here in a new tab. I create a. In great health, if the name should be in a specific format. Initially, you should use the if. That will determine the previous related field. You should always follow an enemy. And when you see it's not hard, and you can give any name to the calculated field. But the thing is like there should be some branding kind of the key. You can do anything, you can put any name, but if you follow a specific naming convention, it will help other people to identify those objects easily in the system. And even in the future, if you are trying to identify, it will help you to identify like this is calculated by the name is. This is calculated. We follow the naming convention like see if this means calculated field. Then we give the function AR, arithmetic calculation. Let's say ARI. Now let's say arithmetic calculation. Let's say A, C arithmetic calculation. Hourly rate. On the business object where you're going to create a calculated field, basically you give the name of CF, then you give the function name in short form, whatever functions you are using, then give them here determined. Just explain what exactly you're trying to find in this calculated field. And then on business object, this is really a very good standard of you can follow while creating a calculated field. You can also do one thing instead of AC here. You can also put here after the hourly rate a C on worker. Let's say we are trying to create a lookup related value. CF hourly rate LR on worker, or you can say CF LRB hourly rate on worker, whatever makes you comfortable. But try to mention the calculated CF to identify that calculated field and in a function when a variable in the calculated field name, and also try to put the business object. Try to put the business object, and in between that you can describe it. Here, let's say I'm creating calculated field on worker business object. Workout business object, and I'm using arithmetic calculation. Let's say this one arithmetic calculation. Click. Don't worry about this. This is not an error. Now this is because of system. Now here if you see, there are two tabs. One is the calculation tab and another is additional tab. These calculation tab will be different for each and every type of functions. Here I have used arithmetic calculation. That's why I can see these fields. For example, field type a rounding currency code. Failure return 0 on error. And then the actual logic where actual place where we can implement the logic. Arithmetic expression. These options will be different for each and every. Let's say if I change the function instead of arithmetic calculation, if I am trying to get the lookup related value, lookup related value. Here, if you see here if you see, this is different. For each and every function, this calculation tab will be different. This calculation tab will be different. Now let me just go back to arithmetic. Yes, arithmetic calculation. Now we will talk about, all this, fields for each and every function. And then, there will be one tab additional. This tab will be almost same for each and every calculated field. Almost same for each and every type of calculated field. Here, what you need to do is see. It's always a good practice to describe something which you're doing in the system. Whenever you are creating a calculated field, it's a very good practice. You just mention the description of that calculated field as well, that if someone is opening, unless if someone is not able to identify the function, the purpose of that calculated field, that person can go to that additional info and will just try to understand from this description. This description. Calculate this description is not actually a mandatory thing, but ideally you should put some sort of description to understand the purpose of calculating. Then the second field here in additional info you will be having is category. In category basically, this is uncategorized. It is uncategorized. Means this. Uncategorized means this. There is no category of this calculated. Now, let's say you are creating a calculated field which will be used in integration, or which will be used in reporting, or which will be used in options based. Here you will be having some categories. For example, let's search integration. Integration event on what? If you tag this calculated with this integration tag, what will happen? Let's say after 6 months or 8 months. There are some useful calculated fields. Cleanup happens in the system. When that calculation will clean up, will start for your tenant, then we know they will see like this calculated field has been created for the integration purpose. They will just take this category from. This category will double and they will identify where exactly this calculated field is used, and they will not delete when they will see. Like this is being used in integration. They will not delete that calculated field. If you keep uncategorized, then it will give them confidence to delete that calculated field. Whenever you are creating any calculated field, just try to mention the category name as well. Then we know authorized user. If you want to restrict the uses of calculated field, you will be able to do using this authorized user. Let's see what are the options we have in authorized users. Here we have some authorized users, for example data extraction, custom data source, compensation eligibility, business rules, benefits eligibility. If you want to authorize user like this, calculated field should be used only in organization chart. This calculated field should be used only in worker time eligibility. If you want to restrict this calculated field, you will be able to do that. Then we don't restrict any calculated field when we create a system-wide calculated field. But if your company is very strict and they just want to follow, like limited field should be used at limited places. You can just put that authorized uses as well. That will be used in that calculated field will be used in that areas only. Then there are intermediate calculations. You can put, you can check this checkbox when you are. See, yesterday I gave one assignment, one activity, right in that activity. I asked you to, generate a security. To generate it. To generate a security key, you had to find the substring of the first name. You have to find the substring from the last name. Then you had to find substring from the data. And then you had to concatenate. Here the main calculated field is a concatenate field. The security, you are getting security key from the concatenate calculated fields. To create that concatenate calculated fields, you are creating the other calculated fields, which are the intermediate calculated fields. I mean, they are not being used anywhere in the system. They are being used to generate another main value. If you want to do that, if you want to just pack that checkbox, you can do that. Otherwise, that's fine. Then you have to not use. If you want to mark this calculated field as do not use, then this. Calculated fields will know. I mean, whenever anyone will say, do not use tag in that calculated field, they are not going to use that. We know this can be used, just for testing. But if you want to just keep that calculated field for you only, you can just tag that field with this. Do not use checkbox. You can also, explore all these options whenever you are creating a calculated field. Then in that one step, there are some options. Here we have some options. I have not explored these options, to be honest. Let's see. You know what I'm going to include as the ball view by field. I mean, that's fine. Whenever you create a matrix report, I mean, if you want to drill down, using this calculate field, you have that option. You're not going to use this option very frequently. This is not, kind of priority thing. Then here, reference ID. This is one of the important things. In reference ID, basically, in Workday, each and every object is having reference ID. If you open any task, any object, then each and every object is having one reference ID. For example, this is one of the calculated field. If you go to the related action of this calculated field, If you go to the integration IDs, then you will be able to see all the references IDs which has been created for this calculated field. System, creates. This reference ID is by default, but we know it's better to follow one naming convention. It's better to follow convention. Here you can see there are reference IDs. This is a reference ID. The one reference ID type is calculated field ID. And for that calculated field ID, the value is this 1A. This is one of the reference ID for this calculated field. If you want to change the reference ID of calculated field, you will be having two options. One option when you will be creating a calculated field there, you will be having option to edit the reference IDs, or also, if you have access to maintain, calculated field, you can update the reference IDs later as well. Then we have BQ alias. This is mainly used in Workday Exchange forms. We have another integration tool, that is Workday Exchange. And there we generally use virtual alias name. But virtual alias name is kind of, query language. If you want to, I think you are across the database management system. But if you want to fetch data in DBMS generally, what you do is you do some, select star from, the table name, and that gives you all the base. Now, if you want to extract, some of the fields from that table. What you do is select first name, comma, last name, comma, date of birth from employee table. And that will give you the first name, last name, and date of birth. That's what we do now here in Workday. We also pre-QL. We are not going to create this in the integration space. This is something advanced topic. But in Workday Exchange, whenever we need to call, when we need to get data from the from the Workday system, we are going to use similar select statement here. And there we are going to use this as a field name, for this calculated field. This is the actually field name which will be used in the WQL. This part. This is something you will get to know later when you will talk about the Workday Exchange. That's a very high level advanced topic. These are the options we have in calculated field. You will be having two tabs, calculation and additional information. Calculation is a tab where you are actually going to define the logic. You are actually going to configure the logic. Then you will be having additional information. You will be having the tagging details, the reference ideas, calculated field description, the category details. All the details you will be able to see in the additional information. And one more thing, whenever you check this checkbox, do not use it. We'll append it to do not use in the calculated field name. You can try it out. Then naming convention. I mentioned it. Let's say naming convention is something like this one. Naming convention. You can use like this. Here you give CF, then function name. Then description. Brief description. Then on business object, this is something you need to define. This will be dynamic. And then, this will be dynamic. You can use this naming convention. You can also use, instead of this, You can use this naming convention. You can give this function name. This one you can use. And then if this report is going to be used in the report, then you can give something like this. If I found that the same thing, function name at the business object. When I'll give the activity, you just try to create calculated by using. This functions only. Now the next part is who can create calculated fill in the system. Security required. To create calculated in the system. To create calculated in the system, what you would need is to create a system like calculated. You need one security domain access, that is custom field management. You should be having access to this domain, custom field management. Then only you will be able to create system-wide calculated fields. Report specific calculated bill. You should be having access to private calculated fields management. And differences, very simple. Let's say you are living in a colony. You are living in the colony. And in that colony there is one part. But that part is accessible for all the children, all the members who are living in that society. That is a system-wide calculation. Now let's say, you have built your own garden in the roof of your house. That that garden will not be accessible to everyone in that society. That will be accessible to only your house. That's the major difference. The system wide will be calculated. It's a kind of common park in the society. And this report, specific calculated, is something kind of your private garden, on top of your floor in your house only. That's the main basic differences. Now, if you want to, understand what will be the security domains for, calculated. What is the lesson? You have created one calculated. And you want to see what security rules would be required to view that calculated. Here I have opened one calculated. This is one of the calculated things. Now if I want to access the value, if I want to access this calculated bill, I should be having access to the particular domains. What are domains? If we need to figure out those security domains, what exactly we can do is we can just go to related action of the calculated field. There is one option, security. In that security, you will be having one option of your security. If you click on view security, you will be able to understand what are the domains you need to use. Here are the domain names you will get in security policy column. See these two fields. To create this calculated fields, these two Workday delivered fields has been used. These two Workday delivered fields are used, can be accessed by any user in the system. Basically, this calculated field will also be accessed by any person in the system. Now let's say, you might have, if you create another calculated field on a gender or only then that you will find some security, security policy. So to access those calculated fields, the users will be required not to have that domain access. Then only the user will be able to see that calculated field in the system. We will check that, anyways, we have one activity where we are going to create calculated field on gender field. Now, if you want to understand, whether in system, let's say you get some requirements to create a calculated field. And before you start creating a calculated field, ideally, you should check whether if there is any already, calculated field created in the system or not. If there is already one calculated field created in the system for the same purpose, ideally you should be using that calculated field instead of creating a new calculated field. If there is a very complex integration and that you require a new calculated fields, then you can create a new calculated field. But if there are already calculated field created in the system, you should be using that calculated field. How exactly you can get existing calculated fields? To locate existing calculated fields, you will be having options such as maintain calculated, the board. You can just check this. This is maintained. A calculated is one of the report that you can get all the calculated fields in one place. The other is all calculated fields. This will give you system-wide calculated fields. This will give you all calculated fields which has been created in the system, whether it's a report specific or in a system-wide. Then you can also use calculated fields in business object to details report. We have discussed this business object details report when you open business object details. If all this you are creating a calculated field on business object. When you will search, when you will, open this business object details report for worker business object, you will be able to see the calculated fields which has been created on worker business object as well. This is another way you can explore. Then there is, in context, contextual reporting. Sorry, there is one report field. This is also one of the report names. You can just explore this report fields to get existing calculated field in the system. Now, if you want to know the report specific calculated fields, you have another report maintained, calculated. For report, you can use any of this type of resource to locate existing calculated field in the system. Any calculated field in the system. You can just run these reports and see what are the differences between all these reports and where how exactly you can identify the calculated. You just try to explore. This will be your activity. If you will not be able to relocate, then we will discuss. These are not from the hands-on perspective. This is just for the exploration perspective. You just explore what exactly we have in the system. Sorry, I just mentioned active. Now let's start on creating calculated fields. Calculated field, which I would. That is not a function, any function. The first calculated field is less is quite a global calculator. What do we mean by global calculator fields? In Workday, when I am trying to create any calculated field, whenever I try to create any calculated field, you can see that is Let me show you when I'm trying to create any calculated field. This business object is a mandatory field. You need to leave some business object. This means you are creating calculated field on one specific business object. You are creating calculated field on one specific business object. Let's say you are creating one calculated field on worker business object. When you will create calculated field on worker business object, you will not be able to get that calculated field benefits related business object and leave the career as a business object. You will not be able to get that if a worker business object is referred there. Only you will be able to get that calculated field and you will be able to use that calculated field. Now, let's say you want to create a calculated field which is not dependent on business object. You know that calculated field can be used on any business object. Those kind of calculated fields are generally constant calculated fields. For example, there is one number 15. You need to use that. You need to use that number 15. Everywhere in the system, in business process, in integration report, everywhere. You need to use irrespective of the business object. In those cases, what you can do is you can create those constant type calculated fields on global business. We have one business object, global business object. Like worker, we have one business object, global business object. Whenever you create any calculated field on global business object, then you will be able to access those calculated fields anywhere in the system in any business object. We are going to get, create, constant type of calculated fields on, business objects. For example, when you need to define some special characters, when you need to define some, text constant, numeric constant, these kind of calculated fields you will be. Now you are going to create a global business object that those calculated fields will be accessible anywhere in the system. For example, let's start creating a calculated field. I want to create a calculated field, which will give the number 2024. I want to create a numeric constant calculated field that will give the number 2024. We now start creating the CF numeric constant 2024 on global. You don't need to mention global, but if you want, you can mention global as well. This is business objectives global. The function is numeric constant. This is numeric constant. Here I am creating a numeric console. Let's set it 24. This is a numeric constant calculated tree created on global business object. You don't need to give anything, just mention the number. Whatever you want to use. And there in the additional information, let's pack this for report. Here we have reports. Let's tag reports. This is numeric constant 2024. I don't want to use this thing. Then people pay. Then you have this calculated field ready. Now let me open one of my reports. You custom report Danish. The nation wants to this. In this custom report, we have built some worker business object. We have fields on dependents business object. Now the calculated field, which I have created right now, I just want to test whether it is giving me correct value or not. The first of all, you might have seen that I have created this calculated film global business object, whereas in this custom report I am using worker business object and dependent business object. As that calculated field is a global calculated field, I will be able to use on any business object. For example, if I want to get that calculated field on worker business object, I will be able to do that. Let me copy this calculated field name and try to get that calculated field in this report. See, I have not created, this calculated field on worker business object, but still I am able to get. That is happening because this calculated field has been created on global business object, which will be accessible by anyone, anywhere in the system. Similarly, if I want to get the same calculated field on dependent business object, I will be able to do that as well. See, same calculated field I can use on using any business object. I'm not going to, just add here now. Let me click now. If I run this report here, I have one same filter U. Here, if you see, I added one calculated will CF Nancy 2024 on over. And see, we have one constant value 2024 for each and every instance of the worker. Business object, right? This is a numeric constant field. Let's say you need to in arithmetic calculation when you mean create, arithmetic calculated field. Then let's say you need to divide. You need to derive the base wage rate hourly base. Was it? Basically, you have annual salary, and in that annual study, you want to convert that annual salary into hourly rate. What you need to do is you would need to divide that by the rate of the worker business value with the the schedule, because the annual base pay divided by 52 weeks divided by your weekly schedule. So that will give you a base rate here. I mentioned 52. We have 52 weeks or 54 exactly. We have 52 weeks. Now you want to use this. You have to use this 52 number. Say an arithmetic calculation. You will not be simply able to give that 52 as an. Instead, you would need one numeric constant value. Maybe in arithmetic calculation, we will see you will be able to enter that values. But there are many places in the Workday where you will not be able to enter this. 2024 you have to use fail. -1, -30, -400. All these things if you need, if you want to use, let's say you are adding, you want to add 30 days or 28 days. In your higher day, you are going to use increment and decrement calculated. To use +28 or -28, you would need this constant calculated things. Let's go with the next one, and there it is, the increment and decrement. This is one of the calculated tree, numeric constant calculated will. Now let's again create another calculated tree which will give the higher date minus 10 days. Let's derive higher date minus 10 days, CFI and CR. Higher date minus 10 days on worker. What I am doing is worker. You then here increment, decrement, grade function. This is the function. Now here, I will use the higher date as a free. Whatever field in which I need to add and subtract. Then I'm going to use that B. Here I can see to hide it. One is, let me see which one is a delivered field. Click on related action. And here you can see this is a delivered field. I'm going to use this higher date pick. Then I need to subtract minus 10 days. What I'll do here, if you see days to subtract. Here I will mention minus pain. Minus. This minus 10 is a field. See, I cannot enter minus 10 directly, right? This is the field. If you click on this related action, you will see this is a numeric constant. Feel that this is a numeric field. And this is a constant bill which is created on global business object. If we need to use any numbers here to add or subtract any number of days, you need to use fields. You cannot use the number directly. That's where your constant bill will work. Now here just check. Return blank date on either. Let's say if you're trying to add or subtract, from one date and for one worker, we know that date itself is not there. Let's say no hire there. Hire date will be available for each and every worker. Now let's say if you want to, if you try to add, some days in the date of work, and let's say, one worker has not updated date of birth in the system. If worker has not updated date of birth in the system there, when this calculated will fail, we'll try to subtract 10 days. It won't be able to do that. It will generate either. And when business will run the report, then it will show an error, and that's not a good representation, right? I mean, you have given one report, you created for you. Even you have given that report to the business. When the business is running that report, they are getting errors. That's not a good thing. Basically, what we do is here we mention if we check this checkbox where it is saying return blanked in on either. Whenever those kind of situations come, this will by default. This will not return any either. This will return the blank date. That is why we need to check this. They turn blank date on either in advanced, in additional information, same things are there. I'm not, defining categories and here. But when you create any calculated, we'll just try to define the category, try to mention the description, all these things. Now let's say, I have created this calculated fail. Let me see how this calculated bill is working. I will go to this report again, edit calculated field. then I have hired it. Let me add, you know that date after hire date. Hired it minus 10 days. Here let me overwrite the column name. I added minus 10 days click. Then again run the report. Click and here you can see this is hired it and see this is 10 days minus hired it, right? I mean, we know for all not short, for everyone it is 2000. Is it again? See now 3 date 2021. See this is free at 2021. It is subtracting 10 days from this hire. It will write. But this is how we now calculated will works. If you want to add here in the calculated field, I have added in days to subtract. I have subtracted in days. If you want to add 2 years, if you want to add, 2 months, you can use. You can just mention here 2 and 10, then you will be able to get that. Value. Here, I have created some activities. Now we discuss numeric consent. We did discuss the increment and decrement date. Now the next calculated field is 8 differences. Date difference. Listen up, let's get another calculated field. Let's say you get into a situation you need to add 23 because let's say 2023, you need to add 2023 in this increment or decrement it. When you says there is no value with 2023 in the system. In those cases, you need to create one numeric constant field. That numeric constant will show the value 2023. And when you need to add a 2023 in this increment or decrement it, then you are going to use that field which you are creating. Now we know we are going to discuss one more calculated field function today. There, I'll talk further today. Let's stop, Let us create another calculated phase C, A, D. D means their difference, higher paid minus date of birth. On worker, then again worker, business object, and then just click on function date difference. Click on and here see there is start bill and indeed start date and indicate the start date and in date means it is just mentioned the field name. Whatever you want to subtract, this will be the started minus in it. Here date of birth, then up in whichever way you want to return the values. Yes, I know you want to return the values in years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds. You will be having all the options. Let's let you know. Extract in the years. You can explore all these options like how it looks like in hours, how it looks like in days, and then always check. This checkbox returns 0 on error. And this ignore lower level components. This ignore lower level component is something is important actually. I'll give you the examples of this ignore lower, lower level date components. Basically, it's a we know difference. And let's say, you are subtracting, you are getting the date differences, and that differences are coming. Like 2 years, 3 days, in that two years, we know 2 years, 100 days. Saying, when you get the difference, like in your 2 years, 100 days, then we know what exact value you want. You want 3 as a value, or on the value, or you want to the lower level value, lower level date component. Let us see here. We will get to understand, we will create to calculate a thing. Here this is one, and then I'm copying it calculated. If there is another option, we have, calculated. Just go to related action, go to recalculated tree, and there you will be able to see copy calculated. Just click on this calculated field, and here I'm just giving the same name, same name. But here I'm just mentioning even no lower level components. Now this one I'm checking. Ignore level 8 components. Now I have to calculate it. Let me add this calculated page in the report. Here, I'm adding a date of birth as well. Come on, date of birth. And then I'm adding both the calculated fields here to calculate. It filled with the same name, and now I'm confused. Maybe in another batch I created. But anyways, I'm using one and then I'm using the another one with ignore lower level rate components. If you see, it could be. This is the problem of the tenant you add, and then this tenant will wipe out. then run the report. No worries. I'll explain this thing. Tomorrow the ignore level of, date components and all. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@uptalk.com.